And then if I do this, hang on a second. What you see now?
Yeah, we can see a map.
Ukraine, good, okay. Let me just put that back. There we are. I'll let you into a secret. It's not a secret. I'm just crap at technology. It's just I haven't got a clue. I'm just winging it. And literally, I finished this about 10 minutes before I thought, well, this will do.
I mean, it's 35 minutes past. Should we go ahead and start?
Yeah.
And if anyone comes
ready
along,
when you are. Yeah, people come along, they can.
Yeah, right. I'll let them in. I got the control here and let them in.
Good man. Good man. Right. Evening.
Hello.
You don't say much, do you? Right. Okay. My name is Graham. This is the first one of this type of thing that I've done, so you'll have to bear with me. I would welcome feedback, good, bad, indifferent, or whatever. Email me, Facebook me, whatever. Just let me know what you thought of it, basically, because I'm hoping if it works, I can do more. I'm going to start off with a bit of background to what I do. Okay, so we're going to start off with that. So that's my website. Have a look at that if you're bored. Okay, come on, there we go. Right, I just want to hang on a second. Right, okay. I see I told you here technology. Right, I'm in the camera club for my sins. I hate camera clubs, but it's a night out and we go to the pub. So happy days. And living in Llanelli, we have Division 1 rugby. We got the Scarlets down the road, so I'm often there taking photos of the rugby. I photographed international football, that's Wales playing. I've done cycling, various sports, and a lot of news and press photography. This is Uncle Charlie down the pub pulling a pint. And I'm fortunate enough to have had my work accepted and published all over the world in these plus other publications, to name but a few. If you missed earlier on, I'd like to say that if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask at any time, okay? So just shout them out. There's no bad moment, there's no questions you think maybe dull, just shout them out. The only thing I do ask, though, if you are going to go to sleep, don't snore because it keeps everybody else awake, okay? Cool. I also photograph bands, and I've been lucky enough to be practically on stage with Stereophonics, Brian Ferry, bands like Meatloaf, and Lionel Richie. Lionel Richie, I got to say, has got the biggest hands I've ever seen in the world. His hands are nearly like a foot, you know what I mean? Or 2 foot even. That's her indoors. I do a lot of portrait photography, but I like to do portraits with a little difference. So I put skateboarders in suits, and I put chairlists under the motorway, and ballerinas in World War II bunkers. I also set fire to people, just to get something a little bit different. I like to use pyrotechnics and smoke in my photography, and then do something like that to combine them both. There's a naval distress flare. If you ever get to use a naval distress flare, all I can say is don't. I like a bit of urban dereliction, obviously, that's the subject of this evening. This is a bit of an unusual one. That's out in Iceland. It's a US naval Dakota, which crashed there in 1974. And it's on the black sandy beach. When I went there, first of all, back in 2011, there was no road to it. We had a 4x4, and we just drove through the black sandy sand dunes to get to it. There was no signs. You got to make it up as you go along. Now we went back to the same area it was 2018 last, and now Iceland has gone so far the other way where it's very commercial. Now there's a paint display car park and some portaloos there and a sign saying plane this way. So, you know, I wouldn't look at going to Iceland again. However, we have been along the western part, and that's really an experience. If you want to go and see the real Iceland, go west. If you want to do the commercial stuff, go south. But I tried to find somewhere a little bit off the beaten track. This is up North Wales. We talked earlier on about Dinorwig Quarry. This is as spectacular, but it's not Dinorwig. That's Dinorwig. I also do, you know, something a bit different, bit of natural history and wildlife. Not averse to doing a bit of that. Weddings, do a lot of weddings. For the last 8 consecutive years, I've been fortunate enough to have been shortlisted as one of the top 5 wedding photographers at the Welsh National Wedding Awards, which is I'm happy with. Glad I've never won, because as soon as you start winning things, people start criticising and analysing your work, and I'm not really that good anyway, so I'm happy to become a runner-up. 2 years ago, I took part in a 24-hour photo marathon in London, which seemed a good idea at the time, but it ended up being awake for 37.5 hours, I think, altogether. And there were various themes on the hour. This was one theme. The theme was looking up. So I took this at Leadenhall Market behind the Gherkin, and the hourly themes went forward, and it became a runner-up on this, which I was happy with. Again, you know, a bit of a theme developing here. I'm always the runner-up. However, I entered this into the London abstract category without a person, and I was fortunate enough to win, which I was happy with. And I managed to get a £1,500 Fujifilm camera voucher, so I'm more than happy with that. I like to go out after dark, flashing and exposing myself. Can't do it any longer though, because since the court case, and I like to be a bit creative. I've also got a drone. I don't do any commercial work. I'm not qualified. I do it for fun. I enjoy it and I abide by the rules. And there's some various shots there from here, France, back to North Wales. And as I say, I do like a bit of urban dereliction, and like I said earlier on, I like to go off the beaten track and find something a little bit different. Hence my journey to, let me change screens, to the holy grail of urban exploration, which is Chernobyl. Has anybody been to Chernobyl? No, there's heads nodding. Okay.
It's on my bucket list.
It's on the bucket list.
Yeah, it's
If
the
you
holy
drop me a
grail
line,
of exploration.
I can put you in
isn't it?
touch with the, you know, the people that I went with, and I will wholly recommend. It's organised through Facebook. It sounds, and it is on the outside it looks pretty. How can I say? Amateurish and cowboy, but it's, trust me, it's not. It's probably the best tour you could possibly get. You know, it's 100% safe. There's no mess in there. But you think, what's this? It's all organised through Facebook. It's not a proper company. It's one bloke from Poland, and it's like, but I've been twice and I've thoroughly enjoyed. So I hope you all know what happened at Chernobyl. I'm assuming you all do. Like I said, the talk I would normally give if I was with you this evening would be a multimedia, audiovisual extravaganza, shall we say. But it's not really going to come across in this sort of medium here, with internet lagging and dropping out and what have you. So I'm more than willing to come and give you the full presentation. So what I've done this evening, I've combined my first trip, which was in March 2018, where there was snow on the ground and temperatures to about -10. with photos from my last trip, which was in October 2019, which was a very autumnal feel, and it was t-shirt weather. Okay, so we're going to take a trip now back to 1986, where at 23 minutes past 1 in the morning of April 26, 1986, Chernobyl became a household name. There was a safety test at the number 4 nuclear reactor at the Lenin power plant, which went horribly wrong, and the rest, as they say, is history. Not going to dwell too much on the history, and as I say, on the full presentation, I do present copyright-free images of what it used to look like and what it's like now, as a bit of a compare and contrast. Okay, so the area we're looking at is about an hour and a half drive north of Kiev, and you can go to Kiev and you can have day trips to the exclusion zone. You can't just turn up. Okay, you have to have visas and everything sorted for you, but you can go there on day trips, as they say, but they do tend to show you the greatest hits. Okay. However, on the 2 trips that I've been, we've spent 4 full days in the exclusion zone, and I mean full days. We leave, we get there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and on one occasion we left at 8 o'clock at night, but it was predominantly around 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay. So far the cleanup bill has been about 800 billion US dollars. You know, it's still ongoing. The zone itself is about twice the size of London. It's 1,000 square miles, and they reckon it could be uninhabitable for the next 20,000 years. The official death toll was 31, with the majority of those being firemen who responded to the actual, the first responders on the scene, with just 1 fatality within the power plant itself. Now, Greenpeace estimate that between 90,000 and 200,000 people have died as a result of the disaster. So this is where we stayed. It's a town called Slavich, which was built to house the displaced from the abandoned city of Pripyat within the exclusion zone of Chernobyl. As you say, they're pretty close, but Slavich is outside the exclusion zone. But to get from Slavich to Pripyat, you do actually cross the Belarusian border twice. We caught a train, which was about a 45-minute train ride, and that was to take the workers which are still employed in the zone into the exclusion zone. It only goes from Slavich to Pripyat and back again. Okay, it's a free train. You get on with the workers. They're not the happiest of people, but it's not the happiest part of the world. I'll be honest with you. It is really, it is quite deprived, and it's stark, and it's your typical Eastern European Soviet-looking sort of town. I say these were taken during the my first trip. I say it's quite a bleak place to be. However, when I stayed on my first trip, I stayed in that house, and it was very, very comfortable, very, very clean. And on the second trip, we stayed in an elderly lady's apartment. She moved out and we moved in. But I say it's quite a stark place, and no bundle of fun, I'll be honest with you. So we caught the train, and it was quite a spectacular train ride. We passed, during the autumn, there was this low mist first thing in the morning, and the colours were absolutely amazing. Absolutely tremendous. In the winter, we passed over frozen rivers. We passed over, you know, expanse of absolutely nothing where nobody was living. And when we get to close to the power plant, we cross the last river. And one thing that's I always remember, daubed in big white letters in English at the pine end of an abandoned building, was the slogan "Welcome to Hell," which was a bit of an apt thing to see, I suppose. It wasn't the type of thing you normally see when you go to Benidorm or places like that, but it was quite an interesting take on your holiday. So we've now arrived at the Chernobyl power plant railway station. There are about 3,000 people still working within the exclusion zone, so it does get quite busy. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
I don't know if you know this, but the people that work there, do they work there like full time for their whole life, or do they have to rotate out?
Yeah, they do work shifts. They tend to work 12-hour shifts a lot of the time, and they will work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Right.
Is the norm. However, there was one woman we saw, she was in charge of something there. She was on the first train in one morning, which was about 7:30. And apparently she was still there the following morning. She was leaving on the first train out. So hang on a second, my dog wants to get out. Right. Sorry about that. Right, let's carry on. Right. Quick, if on the technical side, I'm not a technical photographer. If it looks good, I take the picture, okay? The kit that I use, on the first trip, I was using Nikon D810 full frame. And on my second trip, I subsequently switched, especially after winning that Fujifilm voucher. I dropped all my Nikon full frame stuff and I went with Fuji. And I now shoot 100% Fuji, which is crop sensor. And I use the XH1, which is a stunning camera. They're two totally different beasts, but the quality of the crop sensor, I'm more than happy with. And 95, if not 99% of all that I ever shoot, and this is where most camera clubs get up and walk out, is on JPEG. Okay, I only ever shoot fully manual across the board. Never shot in aperture or shutter priority or anything like that. It's always a manual, but I will always, whatever possible, shoot in JPEG. So that's the rebel in me. Okay, so what you see here, this was Susie, she was on our trip, and what you'd see, I couldn't take, you're not allowed to take photos in the railway station, however, I did take that photo because there was nobody about. But there are armed guards, armed police there, the military, there's the police, and there's patrols throughout the zone. And they don't like you taking their photos. So these are the radiation detectors that you'd come across, and when you arrive at the railway station, you have your visas checked, you walk in. On the way back out, you will pass through these, and there's a row of about 15 of them. And all of a sudden, everybody comes out from the power plant to catch the train. You stand there, you put your hands on the pads, you put your feet on the pads, and if it turns green, you go out. If it turns red, then it's a slightly different issue, where if you've got radiation or something on your shoes or your coat, and they can't get it off by washing it off, then you leave your shoes behind. It's a simple fact, okay? Which nearly happened to one of our colleagues, on the trip. He'd been into the power station on a tour of the control room, and he got something on one of his shoes, and he nearly had to leave his boots there, which was quite fun. So you see a lot of these signs dotted around the place. Radiation levels are typically between 1.5 and 3.5 millisieverts per year, okay? To give you an idea what we're talking about, 1.5 to 3.5 millisieverts per year in this country. A CT scan can measure about 10 millisieverts, okay? Now, we went to a place called the Red Forest, which is a large forested area outside Pripyat, which took the full brunt of the explosion. and 34 years later on, we were getting a radiation level of nearly 35 millisieverts from a tree. Okay, so there are areas within the zone which are highly contaminated. You try not to touch anything, you don't pick anything up, you try not to brush against trees or anything like that. You're told not to put your bag down, you're told not to sit down. So, you know, they tell you that for a reason. You can't feel it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, but radiation, it's all around you. And that stuff could actually do you some serious harm if you picked up the wrong stuff. Okay. But that's why the place is uninhabitable. That was our first view of the doomed nuclear reactor number 4. There were 4 reactors in service that night. They were building the 5th, which we'll talk about later on. But that was our first view of the sarcophagus, which has just been built over it. On our first trip, we had this luxurious form of transport. It was a Ukrainian PAZ bus, which was built, believe it or not, in 2011. So it was basic, to say the least. On our next trip, which, as I say, was in 2018, we moved up a little bit. We had Mercedes Sprinters, black windows and all the nonsense. But what we did notice, obviously, since the first visit and the second visit, there'd been this Sky TV series, Chernobyl. And if you haven't seen it, it's well worth watching, and it is quite, it's very accurate. It's not over-dramatized. But as a result of that, the place, it's not got Disneyland, and I'm not the only person that's been there, but you get these trips, you get these day trips up from Kiev, and they will take you to the hospital, and they'll tell you, you can't go in because it's too dangerous. They'll take you to the swimming pool, you can't go in because it's too dangerous. We'll take you into this building, but you can't go there, and you can't do this, but we have to come out after 2 minutes. Our trip, we had 4 days, it was custom made, we could turn up, where do you want to go? How long do you want? Do you want 3 hours? Okay, back of the bus in 3 hours. It was very flexible, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. But as you say, we, because of tourists, it has an impact on people who are on tourist, our type of trips, if you know what I mean. Because we had to be seen to be playing the game, because otherwise our tour guide would be wrapped over the knuckles, basically. Now, what we found was that we could turn up at the city square in Pripyat, and we'd be there by 9 o'clock, and you wouldn't see another bus till about 9:30, maybe. You may see another, you may not see another bus. Now, if you go there now, then you'll turn up, and if you get there, which we were there early because we got the train in, but if you got there before 9:30, you wouldn't see another bus. 9:30, you'd have about 6 buses there. Big difference. It's become very touristy, but like I say, it does tend to be the bits on the tourist trail, even though it is all touristy. The centre itself, Pripyat, is where everybody wants to go to. Now, the roads are not maintained. However, the roads around the nuclear reactor, yes, they are maintained. The main roads themselves, they were actually filling the potholes when we were there. However, as soon as you go out into the city, or if you go out into the exclusion zone, then you'll come across mud tracks, and you're driving down in a bus. Okay, so this thing's bouncing all over the place. So our first stop proper is this, which back during the Cold War was top secret. This was a top secret Soviet military base. This place was called Duga. Duga was also known as the Russian woodpecker, and it was called that due to this random electronic pulses that were caused were sent out and caused interference to electrical appliances, including TVs and radios all over the Western world. It's actually an over-the-horizon radar system, okay, and it's on a military base. It's massive. This thing is absolutely huge. The first antenna is 150 meters high and 550 meters long. And the second antenna is 80 meters high and 220 meters long. Cost of building this Duga radar was twice as expensive as the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And the nuclear power plant was built to partly power this. Okay, it was an early warning system to stop intercontinental ballistic missiles coming over uninterrupted and give the Soviets time to react. Apparently, it cost somewhere in the region of 7 billion Soviet rubles. It opened in July 76 and it closed in December 89. 1989 was 3 years after the disaster. Okay, so still in use. When I was there last, I did climb up part of the way, but I found it took so long. We did only have a couple of hours there. I thought I'll go up halfway and back down because there was so much that I wanted to see, so much that I wanted to do. Okay, so I wandered around in the control rooms and the corridors at the back, and I came across this room, which was the main control room of the radar station, which back in Soviet days would have been laid out very similar to a NASA-style control room with desks and TV screens. And you'd have, on the 3 walls in front of you there, you'd have a glass map of the world. There's no pictures to reference this now because obviously it was a top secret Soviet military establishment. However, you can see a lot of glass on the floor, which sort of backs up the fact that it was a map or there was a lot of glass right round. Okay, that was a schoolroom within Duga. Now, people's perception of the Soviet era and the Soviet towns, and my perception particularly, was that the fact that it's very grey, very bleak, very stark, concrete. But bear in mind, we're in the middle of a Soviet, top secret Soviet military base. Look at the details in the windows. Okay, and I was pleasantly surprised how colourful Chernobyl and Pripyat itself was. It's a massive, massive establishment. If you go on YouTube, you'll see some nutters, I think for lack of a better term, climbing these. They climb to the top and it's like you're having a laugh. It's 150 meters high. It's not been maintained for 30 odd years. A couple of months before I was there the first time, some guy actually climbed up and he fell off the top. So that was off the tall one. And the Ukrainian health and safety people came along and cut the ladders to the short one. Can't quite figure out that one, but hey, there we are. This is a screen grab off Google Earth. You can see how big it is. And when I went my first trip, I only went concentrated on the area of the radar and the control rooms. But there is so much more. There's that area there, which is the town which housed the soldiers, basically, their quarters, the gym, their living accommodation, their laundry, their canteen, their shops, and all that are there. And as I say, back during the Cold War, this was highly secretive, and it was a summer camp on all maps. So we come across, first of all, this is the laundry to the facility. This would have been a road, and you're wandering around and you come across things and you think, why is there a tree growing in the middle of that? Who planted a tree there? And then it dawns on you then, it's like, right, yeah, obviously it's not the case of why is there a tree growing there. It's like there's a road and the nature's reclaiming it. You know what I mean? Or a building, and it's like, who planted a tree in the middle of a schoolroom? It's not. It's all of a sudden nature's reclaiming everything. Pianos, very musical place. You come across quite a few pianos in the exclusion zone. There is actually a piano shop, which I'm yet to visit. The children's playground. And yes, even though it's a Soviet military base, families were on the base. And then you're wandering around and they're just empty buildings, but then it dawns on you then, you see things like this and it's the human element comes into it. It's like, hang on a second, this was somebody's home. Soviet military gym. They had a school on the base, and this was the music wing. And they're all pictures of or drawings of composers. And then you'd come across these types of things, gas masks, which, yes, there is a lot of things which are paused, and I strongly object to that, and I didn't deliberately, I didn't move anything in any of my photos apart from one where I closed their door. I always try to keep things as real as I possibly can. And I'm always conscious that these things are possibly put there for the tourists. Obviously, that's not been left that way. But it has a certain appeal. But as I say, I do try and steer away from that type of photography. So you're coming across here the machines that were used, the robots that were used to clean up the graphite off the surrounding area and the roof of the nuclear reactor 4. And they didn't tend to work because the circuits would burn out due to the radiation levels. So the Soviets soon realized that they had to send troops in. Those people were called liquidators. They were volunteers, they were soldiers, they were firemen. And there were somewhere in the region of 700,000 liquidators used in Chernobyl to clear up. This is the monument to those who saved the world, which is quite an apt title for a monument. It came very close to another explosion, and if that had happened, then most of Europe would have suffered really, really, really badly with heavy doses of radiation. So we dare not think about what happened. Liquidators had medals, but then, that's not much of a consolation when you're exposed to high levels of radiation. In 10 years, over 40,000 of these brave men died and 70,000 left disabled. That's just in 10 years. Now, close by, you've got one of two churches within the exclusion zone. You've got, this is St. Elijah's Church, which is a Russian Orthodox church. It was well used by the troops, the liquidators, in the cleanup operation. And it is still used today by power plant workers on religious holidays. And strangely enough, even though it's only a couple of kilometers away from the nuclear reactor, the doomed nuclear reactor, there's very little contamination around the church. So I don't know if someone had a hand in that or what, I don't honestly know, but it's rather unnerving. Here's a cheesy selfie of myself at the Chernobyl town sign. Chernobyl is a small town. The name Chernobyl has been used for the whole of the area, but historically it's a small town. And if you look in the distance, 1193, that's what it dates back to. Okay. This is the Pripyat town sign, and that was erected to mark the finishing of the city of Pripyat, which was in 1970. Now, the city of Pripyat is in the top left red circle, and the bottom red circle is the nuclear power plant. So you can see how close the city was to where the inhabitants of the city lived. So obviously, where the city was, and those inhabitants predominantly worked in the power plant. That was the only reason they were there. So this is a city of the map of the city of Pripyat, and we're going to visit a few locations in and around the city, amongst other places. And the first place we're going to go is this little cluster of buildings down here. This was the Jupiter factory. It's the biggest employer in the zone next to the nuclear power plant. It opened in 1980 and employed around 3,500 people. They made cassette recorders and electronic components for home appliances, but that was really just a smokescreen, to be honest, because production of tape and components for appliances, well, that was just a bit of a bluff, because in the back room at Jupiter, they secretly produced semiconductor components for the military. New materials were tested in laboratories and workshops, and robotics were tested out in various rooms off the main factory. The factory continued its operations until 1996, which is a full 10 years after the explosion. The level of radioactive contamination in some places remains several times higher than the safe level, especially in the basement. The thing about the basement is, well, you can't really get down there because now it is flooded, thankfully. But apparently it is really, really, it's pretty deadly down there. Now, on my first visit, as I say, when the snow was on the ground, I looked at that and I thought, I'm not going to go there because it's such a big complex. I just sort of wander around. So I kept it low. So on my second visit, I ended up on the roof. So I'm now standing on the end left part of that roof. And you can see how close you are to the city itself, looking out over the city of Pripyat, which housed 49,000 people. And I just turn around, and behind me is the power station. So again, it's very close by, a matter of kilometers. The colors were phenomenal on my second visit, absolutely amazing. In the background to the right of the sarcophagus, you can see the reactor number 5, which was starting to be built, but was never finished. There's a lot of graffiti in, and it's not particularly wonderful, I'll be honest with you. You know, you get people coming in, they're wild camping, they trek for a day and a half to come into Pripyat. They stay there, they wild camping in an empty apartment. And there's lots of videos online basically of people vandalizing and graffiti, lots of things. That Pripyat sign, which that one there, it's been painted about pink about 6 times, and then it's painted white. And the people come in and they're stalkers. They come in, they're uninvited, and they just cause havoc, which is a shame, unfortunately, because there's only one Pripyat. Still on the roof, looking out from the offices. This is the bridge you can see there. Now, on my first journey, as I say, it was March, which was really cold, -10 in places. And in these buildings, you found that any moisture would freeze. And it was like dancing on ice. It was unbelievable. I mean, all that there you see is ice. It's a sheet of ice. And you had to walk through that room to get to the next room. You know, so you're walking through rooms and rooms and rooms, and all these sheets of ice. It's unbelievable. Those chairs are frozen to the floor. You can't move them. And again, of ice. Now you can see there some of the graffiti. It's not welcome. It's
Technical difficulty.
who respect. Sorry.
We lost you there for about 10 seconds.
Oh right. Okay. Okay. I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. We're on the graffiti shot of the wall.
That's the one. Yeah, as I say, there are people who work hard to. I think you've got people litter picking. You know, they're maintaining the best they can without destroying the place. And then you've got people then who will trek for 18 hours to get in, and they vandalise the place by doing this type of thing, which is, you know, unforgivable, to be honest. You know, it's stuff like this you don't see on your greatest hits tour. This is one of the offices above Jupiter, because they'll take you there and they won't let you in. And again, you've got, you walk around the corner, you see the human. So outside the factory, then you've got there's a couple of buses which has just been left, and to road of what you'll see. People expect it to be left, and it's not like that. The city itself is far from that sort of ideal look, because what happened is that after the explosion, the troops moved in, the liquidators moved in, and anything that was radioactive, they would initially burn or bury. And what they found, that once they buried them into the ground, they would pollute in the water table. So they stopped doing that. But obviously the flats have all been ransacked. Some people did return to pick up some possessions a couple of weeks afterwards. They were told they were leaving for 3 days, but they never came back. They were allowed to go back a few weeks later to pick some stuff up. They picked their stuff up, and the rest then was basically trashed. But you do come across some flats with, yeah, you'll come across some things in some of the flats. But it's a big, massive, sprawling city. But, you know, yes, this is, when I went there, first of all, like I said earlier on, my perception was very bleak, very Soviet, very concrete, very cold to look at. And yes, the buildings are, you know, they're there for a purpose. But you'll come across stuff which there's colour. That's the Pripyat town sign painted in Ukrainian colours. In the bush, you see here a wrought iron deer or stag, which, you know, it shows that there is sort of a softer side to the city, as well as just harsh, cold tower blocks. Do you want to break for 5 minutes? 20 past? Can't hear you.
We can break for 5 minutes if everyone wants to use the loo or grab something to drink or something.
Yeah?
Cool.
Ooh. Is that a yes or a no? Do you want me to go on, or is that you?
What's
What
the
do
time?
What do you guys want to do? It's 20 past 8.
Oh, yeah, a quick break would probably go down well. I think everyone's on mute. It's very hard to coordinate this. Can't see people.
Nod. Nod.
Yeah. Quick
Yes,
break.
please.
Mutual nodding.
Yeah. Okay.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5
Cool.
minute break then.
Hello.
I'll just leave this on though as
Yeah,
a,
good.
Excellent, by the way. I'm thoroughly enjoying your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yes, this is very interesting.
It's like I say, it's. Hang on, how do I stop sharing? Yeah, it's. I'll be honest with you, it's something which normally I put. There's music, and I'm not very good with the narration, so I've got my stepson to do the narration, and you know, I'll interject at certain points. But I got copyright-free music over the top, and it's not your plinky plonk copyright-free music. It's you know, some really good stuff. It's quite atmospheric. Because I was very conscious that, I mean, I've sat through Camera Club presentations, and I wanted to shoot myself after 10 minutes. And I'm thinking, you know, it's not the happiest subject in the world, is it? You know what I mean? You're not going to come away from this going, yeah, that was awesome, you know. But I thought, how can you make it sexy? You know, I mean, you want people to be interested in it. And unfortunately, camera clubs sort of are their own worst enemy. They've not moved on. So I tried to do something a little bit different and hopefully give them a boot of the backside. But I say in this sort of environment, I don't think it would work because you're just going to lose, you know, like say stuff dropping out and lagging.
No, I mean, this is right up my street. I'd love to bounce some ideas off you at some point. Anyone who's seen my work will, you know, we've got quite a close connection with, you know, your photography.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not very good at talking about this stuff. I'm going to take a minute out. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm also, I don't know if anyone else is finding this, but I'm very conscious of my resting bitch face whilst I'm watching, you know, watching your presentation, and I you know, it's just.
You can go to your profile picture. If you say stop video, it just changes to your profile picture like that. Which is,
I think I may do that. Yeah, it's very conscious.
I'm just going to get a glass of water. I'll be back now.
yeah, no worries.
Daz, thanks for letting me in.
That's okay. Yeah, sorry there was a problem. I don't know what that was.
I had the login from the Facebook page, and it looks like you're using a different one.
Very strange. I don't know what went on wrong
Yeah,
there.
I used one in an old email and it didn't seem to work, and then from the more recent one, so.
different meeting. That's like different meeting ID.
Yeah, you know what technology is like.
I got the same thing. I was just told that you were already in a meeting and they wouldn't let me in.
That's what
Yeah. Same here, yeah.
All right, I'll have a look at that.
Is it possible, because the Zoom Fridays is a different meeting?
Yeah, it might have got mixed up somewhere. I'll have a look at the account. Yeah.
It does. There are 2 meetings on the account.
Ah, right.
I had the same problem trying to get in.
Very strange.
Yeah, they're different ID numbers.
Is everyone back now then?
Yeah, back now.
I could ask you why.
I think we're all back now, Graham. If you want to
Yeah.
carry on,
Okay.
yeah. Anyone that came late and stuff, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to do so at any point.
Yeah.
I'll unmute everyone for now except for Graham. But yeah, if you just want to ask a question, then just unmute yourself and then ask away.
You can mute me as well if you don't mind. Don't bother me one bit. Right. Okay. Hang on. Share screen. That one. Okay. Right. Hang on. I've lost my. Here we go. Right. Okay. Share. Okay. So we're back to the bush. Is that what you're looking at? Good. Right. Right. So there's a river that runs through the exclusion zone and alongside the city of Pripyat, and funny enough, it's actually called the River Pripyat. And this is an area which I've not visited, and I hope if I do return, I'd want to visit. There's a fleet of sunken ships, but they're quite a way out. It's a bit of a trek to get to, apparently. Now, this we're going now. We're going to this area of the city. And in fact, more importantly, there's that little dot there to the pleasure craft, which used to take people up and down the River Pripyat, sitting there in the frozen waters of the river itself, and you could literally just walk out onto it. There was no issues whatsoever. There was no cracking, nothing. That was really solid pack ice. However, come back in October and it's a totally different environment to look at. And in the distance, you've got the port of Pripyat, where you've got these 1, 2, 3, 4 cranes, 4 dock cranes, which tower above the frozen river. They're quite a sight. We were told that we shouldn't climb them. However, if you wanted to, knock yourself out. Not literally, but if someone's going to say, don't do anything, you're going to do it, aren't you? So I climbed up, and during the winter visit, you had literally, the steps were sheet ice. So it wasn't the best of ideas, but it had to be done. And when you reach the top and you want to go up further, you can see the issue you get in. And I'm thinking, how safe is that? I don't know. It was safe enough at the time, but what's it going to be like in a few years' time? It's going to look safe. If you've been there before, you're going to be a bit blasé, you're going to go for it, and it's like, all of a sudden, down it's going to come. But yeah, I wanted to get up into one of the drive-in rooms, the control rooms, to look out. And I was conscious in my 2 visits, I didn't want to visit the same place twice. Obviously, we did visit the same place twice, but I didn't want to get the same photos twice. But bizarrely enough, without even thinking about it, I was practically in the same place when I took those 2 photos. But you can see the contrast, this beautiful place. Now we're moving on to the hospital. Now the hospital is that complex there. When I say it's a complex, it literally is a complex. That's the main hospital building. You've got the maternity ward, you've got infectious diseases, you've got all sorts of things in different buildings around here, including a mortuary down there. It's the place where the first responders were taken, and the clothes that the firemen were wearing were dumped in the basement of the hospital, and they're still there to this day. And they are some of the most radioactive clothes you're ever likely to see in your life. Not advisable to go down there. Very dark, you can easily lose your way. It is quite a sprawling complex. But you're wandering around and you go into one room, which would lead to another room, which would lead to another room. So they're not all fed off a central corridor. It's a bit of an odd sort of principle. And you think you're on your own. And you turn the corner and there'd be a photographer with a tripod. But the fear of God in you. It's a bizarre place. It really is. See, you could walk around, even now with the upturn in tourism. You could walk all day and you wouldn't see anybody. You wouldn't see anybody from your own party. There were about 16 of us on the bus trip that I was on. Yes, we would bump into each other. We kept in touch via walkie-talkies. But as I say, most of the time, we'd say meet back here an hour, 20 minutes, 3 hours, whatever, and you'd be on your own. However, if you do go, it's advisable for you to pair up with somebody or to buddy up with somebody just in case. So there was a maternity ward. A couple of dressing gowns. Lenin gets everywhere. So we're leaving the hospital and we're going to a place that I did mention just now, part of the hospital complex. It's a place that I wanted to go first time around, but I couldn't. That's why this is from last October, was the mortuary. It's not every day you get to visit a mortuary. Very small, self-contained building. Cheesy selfie. But I found these, and I've only seen one photo of these elsewhere. And when I went to Chernobyl, I did a bit of research. And when I subsequently went back, I'm thinking, where do I want to go? What I want to look for? What I want to find something different. Like I said at the beginning, if I go to North Wales, I don't want to get my usual Dinorwig photos. I want to find some place in Dinorwig that nobody else has been to, or not many people have been to. So I did some research and I saw a few photos and I think, right, I'd like to find that place. And some I found, some I didn't find. This was one, and as I say, I found very little evidence photographically of these guys. They're standing outside a sports hall, tucked behind the hospital. So they're quite central. Now, the buildings are all in Pripyat. They're all brick or concrete buildings, and if left unmaintained, then they end up in this state. And in a few years' time, this is what the city will be like. It will be too dangerous to go in. All the buildings will be fenced off, and you'd be viewing them from the outside. This is school number 1. There were 15 primary schools, 5 secondary schools, and 1 professional/university college school with a capacity of about 5,000 children. There was also a music school, but we're going to visit that at the end. And they're just boxes of gas masks left there from the liquidators in the school, in the corridor in the school. It's also the case that all the children in all the schools were all issued with gas masks as standard procedure. Now, our next visit, we're going to the central square of Pripyat. That's that area here. And in the central square, there's the Polynesia Hotel. We've got the cinema. You've got the theatre. You've got the music school itself. And the Palace of Culture. The Palace of Culture was a large building with a swimming pool, a library, lecture theatre, museum, and here we're in the cinema. Not much of a film, but hey. And again, the first time I went, I walked past you because there were so many open doors, you can't fit everything in. And again, it's not a place you get to see on the Greatest Hits tour. And again, if you look online, you won't find many photos of the cinema in Pripyat. It's one of those places which people walk past. That's the outside wall. And like I said earlier on, my perception of a Soviet city was grey, bleak, concrete. But you can see, you know, the murals on the walls, they're far from it. You know, they're very artistic, very beautiful, and in very good condition, some of them. So we're now going into the theatre. Sort of full fly tower. So they would bring the scenery up and down. There's the rigs of the lights there. We're on the central square with the phone boxes, Hotel Polynesia there, Palace of Culture over there, and the cinema and theatre. No, they're over there, sorry. That's the hotel. Remnants of Soviet era on the lampposts and on top of the buildings. Also in the main square, you've got the headquarters to the power plant, the administrative building. And yes, you've got graffiti again, unfortunately, on the main square. Now, when I was here last, a few bullet holes have appeared in this fellow round here. And it turns out that the Ukrainian army used Chernobyl for training. That's the Palace of Culture. Oh, sorry, hang on. Oh God, what have I done? I've broken it. Hang on. There we go. Sorry about that. That's the Palace of Culture itself. Mainly square buildings, and this is one of the only few sweeping constructions in the city. Inside the Palace of Culture, again, very, very colourful. You walk in and you get knocked back by the colours. Again, like I said, it's something you don't expect to see in a Soviet, you know, town. It's the lecture theatre. And I say that was that area there. We're now going to what people. If I said Chernobyl, apart from the power plant, most people would come back with, you know, name it a landmark in Chernobyl. They'll come back with the fairground. That is the iconic image that people have of Chernobyl. The fairground was in this area here, which is the park behind the Palace of Culture and the city square. Now, technically, you're not allowed in any of the buildings. They're private property. They are rather dangerous. I found myself on the roof of the Palace of Culture. No comment, really. And that's my first glimpse of the big wheel. Now, the fairground was never used. It was set up and was due to have its grand opening on the 1st of May 1986, which was just a few days after the accident actually happened. It was for the May Day celebrations, and in the Soviet neck of the woods, May Day is a big thing. Their parades, even now they hold it. It's a big thing for Eastern Europeans. There is a story that this was opened briefly the day after the explosion to take people's minds off the the burning nuclear power plant down the road, which maybe it did, I don't know, but I don't think it's much of a distraction. Oh look, there's a nuclear power plant on fire. Let's open the fairground. We'll forget about it. But you see the colours, absolutely stunning. But then go back to the winter and it's very, very bleak. Very, very cold. And just alongside the fairground in the park, you come across these typical Soviet sort of slogan boards. And again, it's one of those things that I didn't know existed. I've never seen photos of them. It's something that you don't see. And yet they're right in the middle of the city. Alongside that is this bridge, and well, these two bridges actually, because there's another bridge in the distance there. And that's apparently where the people in Pripyat would have their wedding photos taken in the park. Every town has a place where the photographer takes you to have your wedding photos, and you know, it's the same here as it probably is in Bath. You know, and you get your traditional wedding photos taken in the local landmarks. And this was the place in Pripyat. Yet I've never seen photos of it, and I've done a quite extensive research in, you know, where I wanted to visit in the city. Around the back of the park is the stadium, the football stadium, with a running track around the outside. And again, as I said, graffiti. This is graffiti, and it is something which it's a more artistic, as opposed to some of the graffiti we've already seen, which is, you know, bordering on vandalism, or if not, is vandalism. Yes, there are bears. Never saw one. Saw evidence of bears though. When we went into Belarus, we were driving down this bumpy country lane through this forest, and I looked out and I could see about 10 foot up some of the trees, some of the bark was missing. So I asked the tour guide, I said, what's the score with that? He goes, oh, it's the bears. And I'm thinking, oh, I hope the bus doesn't break down. Oh my word. Again, you've got, you know, remnants of the Soviet era with these hammer and sickle signs on top of the tower blocks. So on top of one of the 16th floor tower blocks, there are 7 of those in the city. You walk in downstairs and there are a couple of shops on the ground floor. You'd walk into the lobby and you'd have the mailboxes of all the families, and above them the names of all the families who used to live in the flat. So it brings home the real human element of the disaster. You know, on the roof there, you're looking out then back at Duga, the radar. So it's quite a distance out of the town, but it's quite imposing. And yet, top secret, nobody knew it was there. Well, nobody was supposed to know it was there. So it was a city of 49,000 people. It was evacuated 36 hours after the explosion, and they had 3 hours to get all their stuff together, whatever they could carry, and to leave. They were told it was only a temporary measure, they'd be back in a few days, but they never returned. And you go into some flats, and then you see some, you know, elements of furnishings, but it's very few and far between. A bit of a magical find, a piano, but you do come across them, as I say, it's quite a musical place. Our next visit is the swimming pool, which is, I've lost my way here. It's that building there. Now, the swimming pool itself does appear, like some of the other landmarks in the city, like the fairground ride, in video games like Modern Warfare, Call of Duty. But I've seen, I don't play video games, but what I've seen, they've put the fairground ride right next to the swimming pool, but they're at different ends of the city. As well as the swimming pool, there was gym rooms, and at the back you had a basketball court. So we're moving out a little bit now, out of Pripyat into the old town of Chernobyl. Like I said, this dates back to the 1100s. It's wooden buildings predominantly, or very low-rised, you know, not well-designed bungalows. Oh, sorry. Whoa. Sorry. Oh, I told you I hate technology. Right. Sorry about that. And you know, they really are in a bad state. And you walk in, and you could quite easily put your foot through the floor, and I did on one occasion, and it was, you know, does make you sit up and think, hang on a second, something could happen in here. You don't want to break your leg out here, because literally it's a bumpy bus ride back. To walk to the bus, it's a bus ride back to the train station. It's on the train, 45 minutes to get off the other side to find the hospital. It's like, not really the thing you want to do. In these bungalows and houses, this is the most important thing. That's your oven and your central heating system. That's how you cook. That's how you keep yourself warm. This is a monument. Each one of those signs is a lost settlement, which has been deserted, bulldozed into the ground because of the disaster. And the signs go on as far as the eye can see. Now, we're back in front of the reactor number 4 and the monument to the Chernobyl victims. And you see a dog. And funny enough, you see lots of dogs. The zone has quite a thriving population of dogs. There's about 300 dogs. When the inhabitants left, they were told that they'd be coming back and all pets were to stay. The army moved in and they did a cull and they shot any dog that they found. Some escaped, and these are direct descendants of those dogs which escaped. They roam wild in and around the city, but they do tend to congregate where the tourists tend to meet, for the simple reason tourists means food. The guards build them shelters, the guards feed them, they get inoculated, there's vets that come in and look after them. And they are lovely, lovely animals, very friendly. And the reason why there's so many dogs here is because we're outside the shop. And yes, we are in the exclusion zone of Chernobyl. And as you see across the road there are flats which some of the workers stay in for a fortnight and then they leave for a fortnight and come back. So they're apartments for people working within the zone. So there's a shop, which is a really bizarre shop. It's, if you want cheap radios, cheap baked beans, sausages, or any alcoholic drink you can name, they will sell. You know, they sell top shelf there. You've got a steam iron next to a thermos flask and a kettle. You've got shampoo, you've got your essentials, you've got your obligatory Chernobyl t-shirts, your deodorants, ice cream. And this wall here, which stretches back about 7 or 8 cabinets, is literally alcohol. And it is dirt cheap. But that's another story for another day. Also, close by, there's a hotel which you can actually stay in the exclusion zone. And that's the cafe bar in the hotel. So we're going across the border now into Belarus and a village called Krasno. And again, very sparsely furnished, You know, you've got the hole in the floor there, and there's like a 4-foot drop. So you don't really want to get your foot caught in these things and disappear down a hole. In the village, there was a school. Which was quite a fascinating place to visit. I'll be honest, it was really magical. But you're out, you're well away out of Pripyat, and you won't see this type of thing on your day trip or your greatest hits tour. There's a war memorial stands, which would have been surrounded. It's on its own, but it would have been surrounded by timber buildings and houses. They've all been bulldozed away. That's the only thing that's left standing. It's a Second World War memorial. This is the second church, St. Michael's Church, which we could go in, and it's very well maintained, very colourful. That's the view up, looking up at the ceiling. And in the back, you've got the Sunday school. And then further up, you've got the graveyard. And like a lot of Eastern European graveyards, you've got pictures of the people who are buried there. It's still visited, and flowers are left on the graves. We went on from there to see this lovely old dear, Maria. Maria is a babushka. Babushka is a self-settler. People who were moved out and they instantly moved back in. And there are around 150 people who are self-settlers living within the exclusion zone itself. They live very, very meager existence. Yes, when we visit, our guide paid, you know, and that's how they make their living. I mean, they've got to earn some money to buy food. And once a month, a mobile shop comes round and meets for the self-settlers and goes out. But the prices are very, very high, but 3 times what you'd normally pay in Slavic. Her sister lived a few hundred yards down the road, but she would not entertain any visitors whatsoever. And one of the guys on the tour had bought some reading specs, 99p reading specs, because he'd met Maria before, and Maria was over the moon when she had these glasses. Made a massive difference. She was actually, we asked her, one of the guys asked her a question and said, "How old are you?" And her reply was, "They tell me I'm 79. She didn't have a clue what day of the week it was. But the tour guide, this is our guide, Sergei. Sergei used to work in the power station. He was on duty the night of the explosion. And they'd bring food, whatever's left over, Maria keeps and shares with her sister. When they go out to meet the babushkas, then they ask, "What do you need?" And it's a common occurrence that they will say, "Well, we need potatoes and we need sugar because we're going to brew moonshine." And the moonshine is something like 70% proof. This stuff you don't wash your paintbrushes; it'll melt your paintbrushes. I've had a couple of wonderful evenings on the moonshine, and I've never had a hangover. However, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't say bread, I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, I couldn't speak. But the following morning, no hangover. It's good stuff. We also saw when we were out here some, excuse the pronunciation, Pripyat horses, and they are very rare. They were introduced about 10 years after the disaster as a bit of an experiment. And there are around 150 of these horses in the zone, and it's very rare you will get to see them. we moved on to one of the collective farms, and there are a lot of collective farms out in the exclusion zone, where everybody in the neighbourhood would get together. They all had a part ownership, and the state ran everything, collect their taxes, and you would all get an equal share of what was left over. Again, totally off the beaten track, and again, a place I've never seen any photos of. We found a car in a field, rather oddly. A paddle steamer on a frozen river. Again, I have never ever seen any photos of that boat whatsoever, so we're totally off the beaten track. Now, earlier on we saw in the distance behind reactor number 4, reactor number 5. And this is reactor number 5. Again, you're not taken to these places on the greatest hits tours. It literally is an unfinished nuclear power station. The place is massive. It is a building site. It's you'd walk upstairs, flights of stairs to find it's a dead end, or you'd walk up 3, 4, 5 flights of stairs to find there's a 50-foot drop. It's unfinished. There's no map. This is actually what would have been the center of the reactor, the nuclear reactor. And that would have been the control. No, sorry, that's the control room, and that's the nuclear reactor apparently. Amazing place. And there you're looking out from one unfinished reactor to the doomed nuclear reactor. And believe it or not, the workers worked through the night of the explosion. While one nuclear reactor was on fire, they were still building the other one straight through till the following day. So moving outside now to the unfinished cooling towers. And inside the largest of the 2 cooling towers, you'll find a mural. It's by Brisbane artist Guido van Helten. He sprayed this haunting mural of a doctor inside the disused and unfinished reactor number 5 to mark the 30th anniversary of the disaster. The mural is to raise awareness of the dangers of the nuclear energy industry and honour the work of photojournalist Igor Costain, who spent many years recording the aftermath of the explosion. This is Kapachi, which is the second, where there's a Second World War memorial and a kindergarten, and it's one of the closest villages to the nuclear power plant. Literally, if I turn around, you can see the reactor in the very not too distant area. Now, I don't know if you saw the news a few weeks ago. You probably didn't, because it was sort of, we had a bit of an issue with the virus. But a few weeks ago, there was a number of large fires that ripped through the exclusion zone. One of them was started deliberately, and it spread for a large area within the exclusion zone. And it's burnt many of the features and villages that are still standing within the zone. They have gone forever. And the fire literally stopped right outside this kindergarten. Again, it's one of those magical places. But as I say, it came close to not being there any longer. And in fact, the fire spread right up to the nuclear power plant, which still holds nuclear fuel. Now, I took that photo in March 2018. I took that photo in October 2019. Same doll, same bed. You've got a trolley bus, and on that trolley bus, there's a visitor's book. And it's a place where these illegal stalkers who trek in are notorious for stopping and staying overnight. Now, unfortunately, that's no longer there. That was taken out by the fire. Moving on to the Emerald Holiday Camp. This is where the children of Pripyat would spend their summer months. Now, due to the fire, it's gone. Nothing's left. The only thing that's left is that slide, the swings, and that building on the right, because it's made out of bricks. Everything else was totally decimated by the fire. It had cinema, it had canteens, it had entertainment and playgrounds for the children. Moving on to Yanov railway station and scrapyard, and there's a bit of an eclectic mixture of trains and military vehicles. Didn't stay too long because the weather got really bad. But again, I've not seen many photos of that engine or any of these, unfortunately. It's one of those rarities. This building's called the Fujiyama building. It's called Fujiyama because it's got a resemblance to a Japanese style of architecture, and it's a unique building. It's on the edge of the city. It's totally different to a lot of the other buildings, well, all the other buildings, to be honest. You do see the problem. You know, you've got stalkers coming in. They are having parties there. They're wrecking the place. They're vandalising and spray painting and God knows what. And you do see that, unfortunately, quite often. But then you move to the next one, and then the next apartment is a piano. Now, one of the site you won't see anywhere else probably in the world. I say this is a 16-floor building, and you go up to the top floor, and then there's like a service floor above where all the services, the pipe work and all the ducting and tanks and everything is held, and the lift goes up. And you can walk there now because the door is open. And in this particular building, you'll come across a mummified dog. Nobody knows how long he's been there, but he's there. So we're looking now at the autumnal scenes over the city, and it's absolutely amazing. But bear in mind, when the city was built, hardly any of those trees were there. Go into one of the kindergartens again, and you'll see remnants of the children that used to live in Pripyat. Their afternoon naps, the murals on the wall. Going into one of the bigger schools, and you walk down this empty corridor, you turn the corner, you see a sea of gas masks. It's been abandoned. And yeah, you do find that things are placed in strategic positions, and I deliberately try to keep away from that. On the right here, you'll see what's a TV set. I haven't included it in this set, but there's a TV set, no screen. It's a box, the old style box, and people would arrange gas masks around it, which I found very contrived. And I try to keep away from those types of things. But they're quite fascinating, seeing all these gas masks just lying around. So we're going out now to the claw. Now that has a radioactive symbol on it for a reason. That claw, apart from the power plant itself is probably the most radioactive thing in the whole of the exclusion zone. That was used on a crane to pick up lumps of radioactive graphite from the core that exploded out onto the roof and the surrounding area of the reactor number 4, and is highly radioactive. Again, the vandals have been in, and a number of times since that has been painted pink. It's always scrubbed off, but or it's taken off, but it's been painted pink a number of times. So I went wandering. I just wandered around here. I thought I'd go down here, see what's around here. And the guide who was with us, he shouted, "Where are you going? No, don't, no, 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 no." These things, these used to hold the robots that were airlifted by helicopter onto the roof of the power plant. And these things practically glow in the dark. And I'm just wandering amongst them. Because like I said earlier on, you become blasé and it's something you don't taste, you can't smell, you know, you don't know it's there, but it's all around you. And these things literally are very, very hazardous. So moving on now, and there's a scrapyard. If you look at old pictures of the exclusion zone, you'll find scrapyards or fields full of tanks, planes, helicopters, lorries. They've all gone. They've either been buried, or more alarmingly, I read something somewhere that there is somewhere in the region of, I can't remember the figure now, something like 2,000 tons of scrap metal a day has disappeared from Chernobyl. That's probably in your washing machine, in my washing machine. I can almost guarantee it's gone into Russia, it's gone to China, it's gone into the, you know, into the chain. But you see these wonderful, unusual machines you'll never see anywhere else. Soviet lorries. You know, that's a bit of a beast. This next one, if you look at the poster or the image they use for the Chernobyl TV series, where you got the soldiers, the liquidators walking on the street spraying disinfectant or whatever they're doing, and there's a lorry spraying it out. That's the lorry they would have used. There's the fire engines, and these are the exact fire engines that would have been sent out on the night of the explosion. And again, if you look at the TV series, these are the lorries that are featured there. And funny enough, they're still using them to this day. Now, unfortunately, this particular lorry, due to vandalism, has been tipped over on its side. However, they all came, excuse me, they all came out on the night of the fire from the fire station. And if you go upstairs in the fire station, you find this really unusual mural carved into the plasterwork, which was there when the fire station was in operation. Across the way from the fire station is the police station. And you go around the back of the police station and you walk into the prison cells. Now that is not a place you want to be after dark. That is cold and extremely scary. Oops, sorry. See, I told you I hate technology. Hang on, I've lost myself now. Right. Looking out at the rooftops over at the nuclear reactor and the sarcophagus, and you'll see this slogan, which translates into English as "Health for the nation, wealth for the country." Think about that for the moment. Or not, as the case may be. I think they might have got that one wrong. Again, you can see Duga in the distance. Now, you wander around, and as you wander around, everything looks the same. All the buildings look the same, you know, and it's like, where are you? And if you split up, then you tend to find that you could easily get lost. And this was one of the places where I did actually get lost because I didn't have a clue where I was. I knew what I needed to get back to the bus, and I tried the walkie-talkie, and we had two-way communication. Over the radio, they said, "Well, where are you?" I said, "By trees." Well, what else can you see? Buildings. You know, it's like, how do you explain where you are? You can't say, "Yeah, I'm by the red car," what have you. So it was a case of, how the hell am I going to get out here? So I said, right, do me a favour, just shout top of your voice so I get a bearing of where you are. And that's the only way I could find my way back to the bus, because it just was impossible. I'd walk around the block thinking I was getting somewhere, and all of a sudden it's like, I've been here before. You see the odd red chair, and you see a lot of these red chairs. Seems to be the communist red chair. Now, there are a few magical places within the exclusion zone, and this is one of my favorites. We're coming to the end now, so if you want to wake up. This is a place called, what's it called? It's the post office, which you think, oh, it doesn't look much. You know, there's phone boxes there. But if you turn into the room the other way, you see this wonderful mural on the wall of a cosmonaut and this woman. Absolutely incredible. It's like, wow. It's something you don't see every day, you know. It's, you know, you've got all this destruction, you've got all this sort of greyness, and like some of the other buildings before, you know, the Palace of Culture, you've got these murals, and it's like, wow, they just hit you. It's absolutely incredible. And another such building is the music school. Again, off the main square, and you can see it is well trodden path, because you can see there the snow is all melted because everybody's walking through the same route to get in. And it looks beautiful from the outside, and it's well preserved. Well, the fascia is anyway. If you look at the side, it's not so well preserved. But inside, there is something really, really, really magical. The grand piano on the stage. You know, you got all that desolation around you, and then there's that. Totally magical. And another magical place. Then we went earlier on. We went to see the river cruiser boat, which is sunk on the river Pripyat. It used to leave from the Riverside Cafe. And from the outside, it's not much to look at. You think, oh, what's so special about that? It's just a cafe, you know what I mean? Even with a blue sky, it's not particularly pretty. But when you get inside, you see the stained glass windows. You know, and if these guys, you know, these Muppets, you know, who sort of go in illegally, start playing and break in this, I mean, it's just going to be such a shame, such a loss. It's not going to last forever, but it's purely magical when you see it. And I said about the red chair, I mean, I took a lot of photos, and this is probably my favorite one from my first trip. It was just a red chair outside on the main square. There was just something about it that appeals to me. It's just so bizarre. But there is a curfew in the city, and you can't stay there longer than 8 o'clock in the evening. However, our guide, Sergey, we saw earlier on, and his colleague, Paolo is a guy in his 30s. He's from Poland. He's a bus driver in Warsaw, and he runs trips to the zone. Now, he was the second guy to enter the zone, and he got all the visas together. He drove a minibus full of people from Poland to Chernobyl, and he pulled up at the checkpoint, presented his visas, and he said, well, how long have I got? And they said, we've got 20 minutes. He said, what, you're having a laugh? I come from Poland, 20 minutes? No way. So the manager comes out. How long have I got? I got 20 minutes. Not standing for that. Goes back to the bus, grabs a crate of vodka, puts it down on the boss's desk. He says, how long have I got? 4 hours. Jobs are good done. Now, from that moment on, Paolo is a bit of a legend, and he can do no wrong, and all the guards know him, all the police know him, and even though he's respected, he will always play the game. And if the police patrols are coming, he'll always say, look guys, hide, you know, I don't want to be in trouble, even though he can probably get away with it more than a lot of people. And because of that, we stayed in the city going on till 8 o'clock in the evening, when most people would be turfed out. So we're going into Pripyat on dusk. We're on top of one of the buildings watching the sun going down. It was quite a magical experience. I mean, there's a city of 49,000 people, entirely empty. There's just you, the people that you came with, the guards and dogs. And it is eerily quiet. This is the city sign we saw earlier on, which was pitch black. There's no ambient light whatsoever. There's no street lighting, and that's just lit by a torch from one side, a bit of painting with light. So we're on the roof now, and the only lights you can see in the distance are from the power plant, which obviously they're working 24 hours a day. And there were two places that I asked to visit. I'd seen pictures of, and I wasn't really sure that they existed. One of them I knew was in the city, but I didn't know where. And another one I thought could be a red herring. And as I said, you know, I was looking for places to find which not many people had seen, or there weren't many photos in existence that, you know, I'd like to get something a little bit different. And the first one was this colourful wall, which was, yeah, it was great, wonderful, but, you know, it's like a wall like many of the others. But the second one, I'd seen a picture of an elephant slide, children's playground slide, shape of an elephant. And I've only ever seen the one photo of it. In all the research that I'd done on all the websites I'd been on, there's one photo. And on the first time that I went, I said, I'm looking for the elephant slide. And I took the picture on my phone and I showed Paolo, and he goes, never seen that. No. He showed his mate. He goes, no, never seen that. No, never seen that. Give up. So went away, came back 18 months later, and he said, where do you want to go? I said, I'm looking for the elephant slide. And I honestly at this point thought, nah, it doesn't exist. There's no way. You know, it's a bit of a red herring. So I showed him again. He goes, no, I still haven't seen it. He goes, hang on a second. So he took a photo of it. He texted it to his mate. Didn't hear anything of it. So as the trip was going, he was compiling a list from people who, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? And he was in this list. And on the very last day, he said, right, guys, where do you want to go? I got the list. And he turned to me, he goes, before you say, I got the bloody elephant slide, top of the list, he goes. And he said, he'd written in this book, in his perfect Polish English, bloody elephant slide, because I'd been on his case so much. And he goes, I think I know what it is. I said, no way. He said, yeah, come with me. So we drove into the city on the bus, pitch black, 7 o'clock October evening, couldn't see a hand in front of your face. And he goes, right, everybody else stay on the bus, you come with me. So the two of us, we just walk through these trees, didn't have a clue where we're going, because it's here somewhere. Yeah, no, return, no, couldn't find it. And you go, oh, no, this way. And literally, as you saw earlier on, with all the trees and all the buildings, everything looking the same, all of a sudden, I swung my torch around, and there was the bloody elephant slide. And since I've come back, I've only ever seen another one photo of it. So I've only ever seen 3 of the photos of that place, and one of them is mine. So I'm more than happy with that. But again, like I said, that's painting with light. It was pitch black. You could not see your hand in front of your face. It's a multiple exposure. I've got Paolo was lighting from the right, then he lit it from the left with a torch. And then I just painted in light in the foreground, camera on a tripod, job done, happy days. So I'm more than happy with that. But then, like I said, we'd gone up to the roof to watch the sun setting, and we were looking at this, and it literally was pitch black, and I got a bit bored after a while because there was nothing to photograph. Unless there's something to photograph, I'm not interested. So we came down the 16 flights, and I'd gone down ahead, and I was just looking for something to photograph in the dark. And I looked up and I noticed that when people were coming down, because you go out onto the stairs runs in the center of the building, and there's balconies. And as you're coming down, their torches were lighting up the balconies. And as I was coming down, I thought, I'm going to take a photo here. The light came on in Chernobyl. And all of a sudden, I thought, oh, I like that. And that is your lot. Thank you very much. You can make up now.
You.
Wow.
Yeah, great work. Thank you very much, Graham. That was fantastic photography. Really enjoyed that.
That was fabulous. Thank you. Absolutely gripping and inspirational.
Yeah.
Great photo.
Because I'd seen the TV series. Was it last year or something? So
yeah.
You know, that brought it home exactly what happened in quite.
I mean, that was very lifelike, because there was that episode where right at the beginning, where they were in the hospital, and the nurse looks out the window, and she's looking at hang on a second, she's looking at the explosion, and then all of a sudden there's this lady's giving birth there, and literally, I kid you not, it was, hang on a second, how do you do this? How do you drive this thing? Share screen, here we go. Hang on, there. Literally, she was in that room.
Oh.
It was exactly like that. If you look at the TV series, it was like, wow. And then they go down the hall, and she's looking for her husband, who's the firefighter, and they come to a little wooden and glass office at the end of the hall in the hospital. And as soon as I saw that on the TV program, I thought, I've been there, I've seen that. It's so, I mean, it's just, wow. It was absolutely incredible. And the facts, very factual, and they didn't dramatize it too much. It was, really well made.
Yeah. But fantastic photographs. What I liked is there's one you showed her before the break, and it had some free armchairs in a room, and there was green moss on the floor, but the green moss actually, from a first glance, looks like a carpet.
Yeah, well, that's just it. And that was actually in the Jupiter factory, which there must have been a common room or something, I don't know. But but those chairs were frozen into the floor. Because it really was.
What would you say? This is a question I found quite difficult to answer to people, because obviously you take some risks to capture the photograph that you're after, and I have also taken my fair share of risks. I find it quite a difficult thing to sort of talk about with people, because for various different reasons, and I was just wondering how you approach risk and what the biggest risk is you've taken to get that shot.
You just don't think about it, because if you thought about it, you wouldn't do it. When you're standing on the roof of a 16-story building which has stood there for 30 odd years, been empty, and the buildings around you are crumbling and falling to the ground, it's like, here's what it is. If you thought about it, you wouldn't do it. Afterwards you think, maybe not my best idea. Like climbing up the crane with sheet ice on the treads. And it's like, okay, you started now. You've got to. If you back down, it doesn't look very good for the people you're with. So you've got to do it. You know what I mean? But
do you have
holiday insurance doesn't cover you. Sorry?
Do you have any plans to go back?
Each time I've been, I've come away thinking, I've done it now, I don't want to do it again. But you miss the place. And I'd like, the problem is, if you leave it any longer, I mean, the place is falling apart now. It really is. And a lot of it has gone past its best. A lot of it, like that, the summer camp is gone. You know, it was burnt down with the fire. But there's a couple of friends that I've made. They were on both trips, and they're looking at a private tour, so there'll be 6 people, as opposed to about 16. So it'd be more tailor-made. So if I was to go back, it would be more along those lines and with those people. I don't know.
Is there a limitation on how many times you can go back due to exposure?
No, just glow more in the dark. If I turn the light off now, I just go. No, I've never had a problem. I can't say it's affected me, except for the moonshine.
Graham, can I just ask you about the animals there?
Yeah.
The impact of radiation on them.
Yeah. My understanding is that they don't live long enough for the issues of the radiation to take hold. Yes, it will genetically modify them or mutate them, call it what you want. But unlike ourselves, if we lived there, because we live till 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, or whatever, you know, it's going to take toll on us. You know, we get cancers, leukemia, and God knows what. Whereas with animals, they don't live that long, majority of them. So it's not really a day-to-day problem for them. Yes, long term it's going to, you know, affect them. But my understanding is that no, they've adapted. They've adapted really well, and they are, you know, they're flourishing.
Yeah. Graham, well, thank you for some absolutely excellent photography. I'm actually quite jealous of your experience here. Do you have any plans to publish and exhibit these pictures?
Well, I did have an exhibition. I've had it, and in fact, if I could move my camera to my right, I got about 20 frames that appear. I've had one exhibition of the winter trip, and I was hoping I should have had one in May of my second trip, but obviously that's been knocked on its head. But what I've been doing, I have been going around with doing Camera Club talks. I'm hoping to evolve a little bit. I don't know. Maybe take the frames with me, but it's a bit of a logistical nightmare, you know, turn up for an hour and a half and you bring all these frames or what have you. I've done a book, but it's just for myself. It's a coffee table book. It's big bloody
right, thing. Yeah. I hope more people get to see it.
No, it's just gathering dust downstairs at the moment.
Is it?
But the problem is, because I had it printed by the company doing my wedding albums, if I paid full price, it'd be about 200 quid. So I'm a bit reluctant to bring it along, because it is literally, it's about 2 foot by a foot. It's a huge thing. But yeah, I'd like to, if I could find a good venue. I'd be, you know, if there was somewhere in Bath I was willing to hang them, I'd go for it. I'd have no qualms whatsoever.
Maybe approach BRLSI.
10%. So again,
I was just saying, maybe approach BRLSI.
If you can put me in the right direction, I wouldn't have a clue where to look. But if you could send me some info, I'd love to. I'd love to.
I think if you talk to one of the organisers here, they might have suggestions for you.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that'd be great.
Anyone else got any questions? No,
I have only one question.
Go for it.
Because I just saw that there is 2 different colors in your pictures. I mean, there is some presets on some of them. And I would like to ask you that why it's there. I mean, what's the reason?
Right, when it comes to editing, I'm crap. That's a technical term. I'll be honest with you, I'm not one of the, like I say, I'm not a technical photographer. I'll go on it. I think I like that. And I'm not one of these photographers who will take a photo knowing what he's going to do with it. Because if it looks right, I'll take it. And when I sort of edit, it looks right, job done, happy days. I'm quite lazy when it comes to that. I just sort of, you know, but the presets that I'm using, I use Lightroom. The straight photos from the Fuji are phenomenal. The JPEGs, the quality, the colors are amazing. And I use there's a film simulation. I use the Pripyat film simulation, but that's for the normal photos, which aren't, I'm sure you know, which aren't sort of this type of thing. How do you show? Oh, I can't drive this thing. Share screen. Here we go.
Yeah.
There we are. Right. Hang on. There we go. Yeah. For that type of photo, it's your normal. It's just Fuji Pripyat, which is built into the camera, and I just do a bit of levels, and that's it. End of sports. But I'm assuming you were talking about something like that, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
That sort of look. These, it's, hang on a second, what's it called? Hang on. Here we go. It's Nick Effects Analog Pro.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I tend to use. Nick Effects is something you pay for now, but at the time it was free. And I literally bought a new laptop and I couldn't find my free version. So I thought, right, I couldn't live without my analog effects because they're brilliant. They're cool. So I went online and I was just about to pay, I think it was 70 quid, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know. So I saw something, I went on a search and it came up with a free. I'll send you the link, Daz, if I can find it, okay, mate? You can get the original analog effects and Color Effects Pro and Silver Effects, which are all brilliant, for free off their website, but they're unsupported with updates and stuff like that. But to be honest, I don't care. I don't want updates because I like the presets that I get from them. So it's Analog Effects, which is part of Nick software, which was bought then by Google, I believe.
And it was sold again recently, and that's the people that bought it have started charging people for it.
Yeah, I think it's about 70, 100 quid, I think.
Yeah, 70 or 80 pounds, I think it is. Yeah.
You know, and if you can get it for nothing, okay, there's probably the newer versions are probably that much better, but are they really? No, not really.
Yeah, I've still got the free Google version.
Yeah, that's what I'm using.
Yeah.
And the analog effects I use a lot. I use quite often, I'll be honest. I love it. I love that look for this type of work. It's cool. It's different.
Excellent.
And it's free, so I'll drink to that.
Excellent. Well, thank you from all of us for giving the talk. It was fantastic. It's a shame we couldn't do it in person, but I think it was just as good through Zoom, to be honest.
Yeah, if you want, I'm more than willing to come up. I can do the full talk, or if you want, I do one on music photography as well, which is again something different. So, you know, when this is all over, let me know.
Yeah, again, thank you. And what I've done, I've recorded this as well, so I'll make this available to our members, but I'll also send you a link for it as well, so you can
have a look
at it and review. And as Graham said earlier, if any of you got any comments, it'd be great if you can give him some feedback on what you thought about the presentation. That'd be great.
Yeah, you can either drop me a line off the website or you can drop me a line on Facebook, and I'll send you the link over then of where I found the analog effects as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, so thanks for your time and for showing those. I think we all thought they were fantastic.
Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great to meet you all.
And for your first Zoom presentation as well, I thought we had a little bit of hiccup where we lost you a couple of times for a few seconds, but other than that, it went fantastic.
See, that would be the concern about the full presentation, because you know you may be lagging and there'll be things dropping out and what have you.
Yeah.
And on a small screen, you know, may not work. I don't know.
Yeah. But overall, it was fantastic, and the images look really nice on the screen. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, well, thanks for that then.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for everyone coming along. I'll see you guys soon, hopefully.
Cool.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Thank you again, Graham.
Ta-da.
Take care.
A couple of messages in chat here.
How do I knock it off?
Let's have a look at the chat.
Clive said he had to go, and that was excellent. Thank you. Oh, Phil said thanks a lot for sharing your experience of a haunting place and some great images. Good job, Graham.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, Graham.
Graham,
I'll speak to you over on Facebook or something tomorrow, and we'll sort out, what we owe you money wise and all that.
Ah, that's fine. It's fine. No, it's good. Cool.
No, we'll sort out something.
Buy me a drink when I'm in Bath.
All right, we'll definitely have you over to Bath, definitely.
Top man.
Right.
Cheers, take care.
Thank
guys.
you very much for that.
No.
Bye.